Welcome to the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast from Never Too Late Cafe. I'm your host, Laura Womack. Each week, we sit down for a chat with someone just like you, someone who had an idea, a passion, a dream, or sometimes just a thought, and planted that seed, watched it grow into something they wanted to share with the world. If you have an idea for a topic or someone that would be a guest for the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, where you can join our Never Too Late Cafe Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, sponsored by Never Too Late Cafe. This is Laura Womack, your host, and I have with me today a very special guest, Bill Clark.
Hey.
Hi there, Bill.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. I first want to say that we met at an artist gathering in Louisville, Kentucky, the Wood Songs group. So are you from Louisville originally, born and bred in Louisville?
Yes, I've spent my whole life here in Louisville. I've had opportunities to leave, but I love Louisville, and it's a great small town, big town, medium-sized town. And it's been great for our family, and yeah, I've been very happy here.
Well, my dad always said it Louisville, and then someone corrected me the other day, but I hear it both.
Yeah.
So how does a native pronounce it?
Well, we have a T-shirt that I think says it all, and we have like 5 different pronunciations on the front of a T-shirt. And you might see that at our airport when you land here. You might walk through and they may have a big sign that says Louisville, Louisville, Louisville. It depends on what day it is, how I pronounce it, but yeah.
So what art form do you practice? You're a musician and songwriter, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. I have a variety that keeps me interested. I'm a Gemini, and Gemini as I've learned in my life, at least how it applies to me, is I have these two sides. I have this guy that went to college and got an accounting degree and is the business side of me. And then I have my music and my songwriting and my storytelling side. And it keeps my life interesting. I may have a little ADD going on, but it keeps me interesting.
My hands up for that one. So I saw something that was written about you, and it said Americana. And I've seen that before. What is that type of music?
Yeah, Americana is a style of music. And if you ever think of John Prine, that is the best Americana that I could, off the top of my head, could tell you. And he just talks about everyday things that happen, and it's typically with an acoustic guitar, typically, not always, but a lot of times you're going to find that singer songwriter who is in the Americana branch of music, and it's one of my favorites. It appeals to me. And it has for most of my life.
Okay. I just really, how you can see something and want to ask someone, but you kind of are afraid to ask. that was me. I was like, so I didn't think you'd think I was stupid or anything.
I don't know if you came to the right person to answer that, but I did. I bet.
Yeah. So how did music come into your life?
Well, music for me, I started in the 8th grade in my first band, and I've got a family that has been in music for most of my life. And my oldest brother, he was 11 years older than I, and he ended up in New York, living up there, playing music and recording up there. And in fact, at one point in time, Barbara Streisand's manager picked up their group. It was called The Three of Us, and they had recorded several songs. And And I got the bug when I visited him in 1969. I really got the bug to get more involved in music. And I have a week that you probably don't have enough time in your podcast to talk about my. It was the week of Woodstock. I was not at Woodstock, but it was that week, and the movie Midnight Cowboy had come out that particular summer, and the character in the movie's name was Joe Buck, and Joe Buck was from a small town in Texas, and went to New York thinking he could reach fame and fortune, and just anyway, long story short is that was my indoctrination into New York, into music, and all that that it offered.
Well, since you mentioned Woodstock, did you hear about it at the time, or was it after?
Yes, it was a Saturday morning. I remember my brother getting the newspaper in, and on the front page was this humongous photo, an overhead shot taken like from a helicopter or something, and it says 400,000 people living in peace, or and we were all like just jaw dropping, like that many people and no problems. It was like, oh, but that was a very special week for me. There was a lot of things, other things that happened that week that, like I say, I could probably fill up a book with. It was a great week. Yeah.
Wow. I do remember you being able to recall things, and you have a quick wit about you. You could make you could make things funny and rhyme and just spontaneous, and that's a knack.
Yes, our family. If you sat down to Thanksgiving dinner, you better be ready with all your puns, because you're gonna have a battle of puns at the table, and it was a battle. It was a battle.
Wow, that sounds like fun.
It was a lot of fun, and it kept me on my toes. I was the youngest, so I had to learn I was sort of the brunt of a lot of the puns, and I had to learn how to defend myself with a good pun.
So you said you went to college and you got your accounting degree, and you kind of have a story about your dad and how the family business and all that. So
yeah, that was I was a basketball player through for most of my life and through college, and so my senior year in college, my coach asked me not to come back to the basketball team. I was a 6'4" center. I was sort of obsolete even at that time, which was 1973, and I was working for my dad a little bit my senior year in accounting practice, and several years after college, and I started playing music out my senior year in college, my second semester, and my hair kept getting longer, and the Vietnam War kept getting louder, and so it was about 2 or 3 years after working with Dad. I went to him one day and I said, Dad, I'm really interested in doing this music thing professionally, and I don't believe that I want to work in accounting any longer. And we had a heart-to-heart talk, and he was very calm about it, and he said, son, if you don't follow your heart, you'll never be happy.
wow, that is awesome, because he supported you.
Yes.
I mean, how many kids, if they had that in their life when they're growing up, what a difference it might make.
Yeah, and if you'd seen me then with long hair and an accountant, those two didn't match, and he had some very respectable clients that but he never said to me, hey, you got to cut that hair, never said that.
Very cool. So yes, you have stories. There was a story about playing at a club one night, pub, I'm not sure.
Yes,
you came out to something on your car.
Oh, you want me to tell that story? Okay.
Oh, I do.
Well, we were working a club. I was in a band called Buffalo Squeeze, and the term I'll elaborate a little bit. Buffalo Squeeze was a term that we learned was back in the 40s, 30s, that if you were a tightwad and you like to hold on to your money, you would squeeze a buffalo nickel. And so the term Buffalo Squeeze was, I don't know if it was complimentary or not, but we chose that. We were sort of a broke band, as most bands are.
I was going to say broke.
Yeah. So we were playing this club, Phoenix Hill Tavern in Louisville, Kentucky. And it was a Friday night. It was a full moon Friday night. And I always learned that in music, playing these bars on a full moon Friday night, you're going to have a wild evening. It was guaranteed. There was no doubt something was going to happen. And this particular night, it did actually work that way. And so it was around 2:33 in the morning, and I'd had a couple beers at the bar with the owner and some of us in the band, and we were just, kind of cooling off a little bit from a big night there. And so walked out to the parking lot to my van, and I noticed something under the windshield wiper. I thought, somebody probably left a leaflet or something. And the closer I got, it was a very thick, whatever it was, and got there and pulled out it happened to be a chapter out of a Stephen King novel. And I learned it was a Stephen King novel after I got home and read the whole chapter. But on every page, this person had taken a green marker and marked "Die Saturday Night." And I thought, oh, I wonder what friend of mine is pranking me here. And so I got home and told my wife about it, and she was a little concerned. And the next morning, I called the owner of the bar, the Phoenix Hill Tavern, and I said, this is probably the craziest thing you've probably ever heard, but I got this novel under my windshield wiper, and every page somebody took the time to write "Die Saturday Night." And I'm a little kind of worried. And he said, "Well, Bill, we've got to do something about this." He said, "We're going to we're going to get on the offensive of the," what did he say? "We're going to do something about this." And so when I got to the bar that night, he had assigned 2 security guards. So everywhere I went that night, I had 2 security guards with me, and they stood by the stage, and I actually got the feeling and know-how of how a real rock star dealt with security. and one of the breaks, I had to go to the restroom, and the guys were following me in the restroom. I said, "You don't have to follow me in the restroom. That's okay." But
anyway, I don't know. In the movies, some really bad things happen in restrooms sometimes.
Well, maybe I should have seen that movie. And so it came down to the last song that night, and there was a man on the dance floor with this woman, and he had a pinstripe suit on, and my mind was kind of going wild, and I'm thinking, mafia, they got me mixed up with somebody, and this is it. They're going to get me on this last song, and he's going to pull a machine gun out from under his coat. And I'm forgetting words. And so anyway, the song ended and nothing ever happened of it. I never, to this day, and that was 1982, to this day, no one's ever stepped forward and said, "Hey, Bill, we got you that night really good." So I'm still wondering if Saturday night, there's going to be a surprise.
Saturdays are tense, huh?
Yes, right. Yeah, I always kind of wonder.
Wow, what a story. So your music, you have, what's the site that has your music on it?
Yes, that's Reverb Nation.
Oh, okay. That's a platform where you can put songs, your story, bio, and promotions. Yeah. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a nice outlet for those that want to kind of get the word out a little bit. You can advertise your gigs, and it's a helpful site. I haven't updated it in a while. I've got a lot of new material I haven't put up there yet, but I need to get back at it and up and refresh it a little bit.
Mm. So when you're writing a song, what seems to come to you first? I'm just the lyrics, the rhythm, the melody. Everyone's different, but how is it for you?
Yeah, for me, it's different on every song. I don't have a pattern.
Mm.
And I've tried to be more disciplined where I sit down, I'm going to write a song. And that never happens. So like recently, I'll give you an example. I wrote a song called I Think I Like You. And I had a lot of friends that have been getting on Match.com and some of the other sites, and they were not having much luck finding someone to meet and go out with. And so some of the stories were rolling around in my brain for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 weeks. And I finally just, the words started coming to me, and it's about a guy that he's kind of shy, but he really likes this person that he's met online, but he's not the best at going about meeting them. But he, at the end of the chorus, it's I think I like you, but I think I like you. But yeah, so I don't have any particular pattern that I have followed. I've gone about songs coming to me in all different ways. I was coming home from a show in 1978 up in Cincinnati, and a friend of a friend was opening for Tom Waits up there. And her name was Colleen Peterson. She opened, she was out of Canada, and she was living in Nashville doing sort of a country rock show, and very good. She was a very good performer, and her style and her stage presence just really impacted me. On the way home, I started writing this song with a friend of mine, and it was all sort of a dreamlike song it's called "She'll Come and Go," and it's all based on this woman who would come and go in his life at different times, but they never had any steady relationship. But she was always flying in or flying out in his mind, as sort of as an angel almost.
So then when you get the lyrics, do you listen to other songs to get a hint of what you want the music to be like, or do you it just comes to you?
I feel it based on the lyrics. I work with lyricists, and one of my co-writers, his writing name is Floyd Knobs, and he wrote a song called he wrote some lyrics called "Buying a Heartache on the Lay Awake Plan," which just immediately just made me laugh, just like you're smiling right now. You heard, like, oh my gosh, and he's sort of a business oriented type of person, so he incorporated a lot of terms like, well, there's no way to repossess a heart that you don't own. About it from a banking, almost a banking and business like relationship. Like he equates everything to this something to do with the financial world, and we ended up getting the song was chosen for a rock and roll station here. We got it on an album. They recorded it live at one of the bars here in town, and then released an album of all the different groups that made it. And they had like 12 different groups that were on this album. But when I heard his lyrics, I really wanted to do a swing type of song. I'd been wanting to do a swing song, so I started throwing a lot of what you would hear asleep at the wheel, a type of rhythm and chording. The chordings would be known as six chords, and that was my first introduction into what a six chord sounded like, and it excited me. And so the song is ended up. I still play the song. I still love it. It's one of my favorites that I've done over the years.
So, and then mixing it, do you have someone else do it? Do you go to a studio and they kind of mix it? Or how do you, for different backgrounds and different
Yeah.
instruments that come in?
Hmm. I have a recorder, digital recorder that I use, and I will add harmonies to it. I'll add a lead track myself. And if I feel like I really need to get out there and I'll book a studio and do it that way. Um, and Yeah, so typically I like to record my stuff here, and it's pretty good quality stuff. Recordings are they actually turn out pretty good. I've been happy with them. Yeah.
So when you play out, how do you find, like, you play what instruments? I never got to that. You play guitar.
Guitar, yes, and I play slide guitar too, which is there's not a lot of slide players out there, and you don't hear about slide players,
Is
but
it
there's a little.
sitting?
Yeah, it's and you put a little, looks like something off out of your tool chest on your little finger or your third finger, and you use it. It's used in blues and in some country, and so I love playing slide guitar, and I started playing that in the '70s, and it really does. It's unique in that you don't hear a lot of people playing slide guitar.
Mm,
Um,
that's cool. So you started out, you also have done piano?
yes, I play piano, and then when I was working with my brother Mickey, we had a duet, and then I used the keyboard and acoustic guitar in that in that act, and then and we played for 15, 16 years together, and
Wow.
we were raising our kids at the time, and he had kind of dropped out of the regular music world, and I had kind of dropped out, get the kids raised. And so he had offers of playing somewhere out, and I'd have offers. So we said, why don't we get together and we'll hire ourselves out. And so we started that. And you were asking earlier about the great outhouse blowout. You referred to it as the blowout gig. And
Yeah.
that was in 1992, and that was a general store in Gravel Switch, Kentucky. It's near Danville, Kentucky, and it's one of the oldest, longest lasting general stores in America.
Oh.
And they had an issue because they had a lot of tour buses that would drop people off to tour the store and the property, but they didn't have any facilities there. So a Nashville DJ got the idea that they were going to donate an outhouse to the general store, and it's called Penn's, PENN apostrophe S store is what it's called. So they had a contest and drew names of who was going to be the first one to break in uh, the outhouse. They had a ribbon around it even. And they kept the ribbon. But we opened for Chet Atkins and Billy Ed Wheeler for that show. So that was so much fun. It was just a great time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did they christen it?
Oh, they did christen it, and we had a crowd around the whole outhouse. And this man that won, I guess you say you won. I don't. Maybe you say you lost, but he he opened that door and went in, and we all applauded when he came out. Yeah.
That is so funny. So, wow. So I know you did, on a site I saw, you had recorded a cover, Everybody's Talking. How
Yes.
did you choose that song?
Everybody's Talking. Well, my first excursion was in 1969. I was 18 years old, and I can't believe my mom let me. But I went up to visit my brother, who was playing in New York City and living in the Bronx there. Let me go visit him for a week, and this was August 1969, and it turned out it was the week that Woodstock was taking place, about 100 miles away from where we were. And so this is where I purchased my first guitar from Manny's Music Store in New York City there. And that's a big deal. That was a big deal for me because it was my first attempt to take a stab at music. And so yeah, so we had a great week. One of the stories during that week was there was a Schaefer Music Festival that was held in Central Park in New York City there. And the Guess Who was the band that was playing. And a lot of the younger folks that are listening may not remember or have ever heard of the Guess Who. They still do perform, but they were running about 20-25 minutes late. And the MC came out and said, sorry for the delay. We'll be on with the show about 25 minutes. Well, my brother Mickey disappeared, and the next thing I know, he's on stage. He borrowed a guitar, and there's 3,000 to 5,000 people at this concert, and he's entertaining people. I thought, I could say he was 11 years older than I was. That was my big brother, and I was like pretty impressed that he could pull that off.
Wow. So that everybody's talking did that come about from that?
Yeah. So the movie was Midnight Cowboy. That was the main song in the movie Midnight Cowboy, and it came out the summer of '69. And the main character was Joe Buck in that. And there are some other stories that I don't know if this is a family show, but
it is.
I won't get into some of the other stories that occurred in that week. But yeah, that was Midnight Cowboy, and everybody's talking, and it lasted with me, but it has my whole life. I love that song.
So you have how many kids?
So I have 2 kids.
Are they into music the way you have been?
They both love music. My oldest son, when he was 16, was in a headbanger band. He played bass, and I wasn't a headbanger music type of guy, but he had a show up in Indianapolis, which is about 2 hours from Louisville, and he said, "Dad, you mind if I take the car?" And I said, "No, I think I better go with you." And he said, "Okay." And so I packed my guitar, and we were driving a Grand Wagoneer at the time, perfect car for a band to drive, at that time frame. But anyway, so we got up there, and I walked in the bar. It wasn't a bar; it was actually a teenager hangout where they were going to be playing. And I noticed they had mattresses all over the walls, so I guess it got a little rough in there. Everything was carpeted on the floor, and there was mattresses so on the walls, so you wouldn't get hurt when you're, I guess, the mosh pit maybe.
Moshing, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. So I heard a little bit of their music, and I decided I wanted to sit out on the tailgate of the car and not really be inside. I just wasn't working for me. I was playing my guitar, and he came out one time and kind of gave me that look like, "Dad, this is not cool, man. We're, playing your guitar out here. This, you're not doing the headbanger music." But anyway, it was a fun experience. But he played bass for a couple years, and he loves music. He was a DJ for a few years, and he and a buddy were DJs, so he really likes music. But both kids are just in love with music. Yeah.
Sounds like it's definitely in the family. So, well, one of the things I thought about of when you first started playing, did you do recordings on vinyl?
Yes. We had an album that came out in 1976, and the group I was with at the time was called Country Folk. And we were playing a place called the Down to Earth Pub, and the owner offered to back us on doing an album. We were like tickled, that he would come up with the money. And So we pressed about 1,000 albums, and we would use those in our gigs and when we were traveling and everything, and sell that as our merchandise. And yeah.
Well, vinyl's back.
Yes. I love it.
I know. So then the next progression, what was after vinyl? 8 tracks?
After that,
it was before CDs. Well, cassettes.
Yeah, I think albums were up until CDs, right? I mean, I was using a lot of cassettes. I was recording our live performances with cassette at the time, and reel to reel.
I thought reel to reel was way far back.
Oh, it was, but it was it was the best quality, really, of something you take out. And I think I ended up selling my reel to reel. It was a TIAC, now that I remember it. And I think I needed to put some food on the table that week. And I think the kids needed some food.
Well, I remember reel to reel. My brother had that, and it was like $300. And in the 60s, that was like, I don't know, 3,000. It was like a lot of money. And if it broke, you put tape on it.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I remember
your
that.
finger in it.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Good
and
memory.
but it was stereo quality. It was really good.
Excellent quality.
I grew up on, let's see, Nat King Cole
and
Andy Williams.
Oh, hey, look out.
Way back. So anyway.
Like I say, your younger audience is going to these are going to be a little bit foreign sounding to them,
I know, but since vinyls are back and people collect a lot of vinyl for, there's whole stores. Our town has a shop that has a lot of vinyl. It's funny, they have vinyl, but they don't have like 8-track and cassettes. I guess there's just something romantic about the vinyl record.
Something about the vinyl. I set up a turntable in my family room and keep my albums out and put one on every once in a while. It's the best. It's great. It's
funny. I even like that sound that's not scratchy. I can't explain it, but the sound.
Yes. Yeah. It's called a dusty needle. Yeah.
So you also take a lot of nature pictures. Is that kind of a hobby for you? Because I see all kinds of, walks and.
Oh, yes. I became a bicyclist, and then it evolved into when my kids got me a couple GoPro cameras, got me a GoPro camera for Christmas one year. I started just going like, I really love that gift. I put it on my helmet, I put it on my bike, and I've bought like 2 other GoPros now. And sometimes I'll have 3 cameras on my bike when I'm going down the road, and I'll try to create a video from my visits to some of these states. That I'm a Rails to Trails bicyclist. That Rails to Trails is an organization. It's a nonprofit organization that takes old railroad tracks, and they clear all the tracks and asphalt where the tracks were and make walking paths and bike paths.
Oh, cool.
And up in your neck of the woods in Ohio, south of Dayton, they have something in the neighborhood of 360 plus miles of these Rails to Trails that are just gorgeous. I mean, just great. I mean, if you want a vacation and you like to buy your bike, we end up in. I saw where you posted a photo of Young's Dairy, and it's outside of Yellow Springs, and so we end up in Yellow Springs, and I get on that Little Miami River Trail there, and to my heart's content.
Oh, I was telling someone when I was in Yellow Springs that I said I grew up, I was from 8 to 18 in Springfield. So it was not far from Yellow Springs. Yeah. And I said, we used to go there to see the Beatniks. It was way before hippies.
That's right. I remember
at,
yes.
At Antioch, you had to be, I always heard like 4.0 to get in there. So, they were different. And we honestly, that was the first people watching I think I experienced.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Our son had wanted to go to Antioch, and we had to go up for an interview. And we pulled up in this building. I noticed on top of the building, they were kids with their legs over the building. They were smoking doobies. I thought, oh my, I kind of like this town.
So, this podcast is called Bloom Where You're Planted. So I always ask guests what that quote means to them.
Yes. For me, I look back on my life, and I have more time these days to kind of consider how I evolved. And I think sometimes of myself as an explorer, and not by that I planned that, but it's just certain doors open in my life, and I always stepped in the doors and looked around in the room and see what I thought and liked. At one time, I was a boxer. I was a basketball player. I tried all these things out. At some point, I was a violin player. I love trying new things, and so where I was when the kids were born was I was planning on being a full-time musician, and then things kind of changed, and I became a Mr. Mom. And when you talk about, what this saying of, bloom where you're planted, is that it? Am I getting that correct?
Yep.
I had an opportunity that I, as a kid, never would have expected, that I was a Mr. Mom, and I got this opportunity to every day spend with children that have stayed my best friends for my entire life and live now just around the corner from our house currently and down the street. So it's like I'm very fortunate in that way. And yes, I probably would have liked to travel and play more music and everything, but everything happened where I lived, and I went with it. And it was the best thing that could have probably dropped in my lap in my entire life, for both my wife and I, to enjoy this life that we've shared for this many. I think we've been together for some close to 50 years now. So we've been together for a while, but yes. And that's, and I tell anybody that's out there in the music field, and I taught guitar for a period of time. And I always would tell my students, if you just think 1 year ahead of today, if you work on your art, work on your songwriting, work on it, and in 1 year you will be amazed. But stick with it for that year, and you will be amazed at what you will have to show for that year. And that was for me. I always would set a year ahead of what can I learn now, and what would I do, and that has worked in my life. I can tell you that.
Well, those are great words of wisdom. So for people that will hear this, I'm sure those would be encouraging words. So what's next for Bill Clark?
Oh, I never know when I wake up sometimes what I've been involved in real estate. I've owned rental property. I've managed rental property for 45 years. I've played my music for 55 years. I have a lot of things that happen each day. And right now I'm working more on my songwriting, more on the recording part. So at our last meeting, I met Katrina, who had an interesting story of growing up and everything. She had talked about, I think she had lost 3 babies in the process, miscarriages, and some of the things that happened. And I was listening to a Johnny Cash, Roseanne Cash tune that's called "September When I Come," and the words relate. I felt a connection with Katrina, so I sent it over to her. So I think we're gonna go in the studio and record a duet of that tune now, and see what comes of it. But it's a beautiful tune, and if you ever get a chance, look it up and see what you think.
What was the name of the song again?
It's September When I Come, I believe is the name of it.
Okay.
And it's written by Rosanne Cash, and then her husband put music to it. And then they asked her dad when he was close to death at the time, and they asked him if he would want to sing along with her on this tune, because she wrote it about a premonition of the death of her dad long before he died. And he died in September.
Oh.
So anyway, it had a lot of meaning to the song, and I thought it really did what Katrina had shared with us at our Wood Songs meeting. I thought it was a perfect song for her to sing, and so she really enjoyed that.
Cool. So, well, Bill, I want to thank you so much for being a guest. It's been a pleasure, a lot of fun. I love your stories. Keep telling them.
Thank you so much, Laura. And I wish I could join you on your Wood Songs. That's on the 18th, is it?
Yes.
And don't count me out yet, but I know your spots are filling up. But
hey.
Yeah, if something happens and I can make it, I will let you know.
Okay. I mean, there's always slots for like alumni.
Excellent.
We were at the first annual, what they call it, the inaugural.
Yes. Yeah. It was our virgin meeting.
Yeah. The first of many.
Virgins there, but we had a virgin meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll clean this up, right? You can cut that out of the show.
Listen, I'm going to sign off here. And again, this is the Never Too Late Cafe sponsored podcast by Bloom Where You're Planted. And I'm your host, Laura Womack. And I'm going to say bye, Bill Clark. And thank you again for being a guest.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.